Here with the first look at the new Srixon product for 2023 with Carl Gunther, who's been known Carl a long time, was rep with Srixon and previously with other companies as well. Got a bit of a look at the new 2023 product and how that differs from last year. So Srixon as a brand been going great guns for the last few years and really on an upward trend. I think the quality of the product's spoken for itself over the years. So it's always nice to see that progression of product that Srixon has done, rather than going kind of all out to change things dramatically when you've got a product that works well.
Yeah, it's definitely a product that is similar to last year. It hasn't changed too much because it is fairly successful, and if we have something that works, why would you want to change it too much?
Yeah, and I think within the materials that are available, laws of physics from a ball flight point of view, there's only so much that can be done as well. So,
absolutely.
So let's have a look at them. Let's start off with the ZX7. Start off with the irons, I think. So I'll take this close to camera just to give a visual. So the main difference we can see here is that muscle bar in the back. We sort of had a very, very brief talk about this one. That element of the back of the head obviously wasn't there in previous models.
Yeah.
Retained the sole shaping, the angling of the sole to help the turf interaction.
V-sole technology is something that's quite unique to us, and it does pick up some extra speed against other brands. So we're very proud of that.
Yeah, something that the ball speed efficiencies of these heads have always been very good.
Yeah.
And we've always noticed a slightly similar construction-based heads, a slight on the ZX7 in particular, a slightly lower spin than some heads, which has been a great USP for it to have. But with that muscle bar in the middle, what's the main update?
Well, the idea really is to get to put more weight behind the ball, so it adds to the sensation of the feel. Plus, also we hope it will increase maybe a bit more ball speed.
So a little more solidity to strike and a bit more efficiency through momentum there. Obviously, there's a in the back, which you may not have been able to see on the camera there. It says pure frame. Now, is that a reference to the external structure of the head?
It is, yeah. It's to do with the milling of the back of it, and it enables us to put weight in the right place.
Yeah. So very much a minor progression in terms of weight placement versus these previous 2 years.
Being a muscle back, there's not a great deal you can do with the product anyway, and as you know, it was successful. It's probably one of our most successful irons, and we would like it to continue to be very successful, and that's the easiest thing to do, is slightly tweak it as opposed to completely revamp it.
And what we can see as well on this is on the toe end here, the different shade showing where the tungsten weight goes in. So from 7 iron up, there is a plug, progression of tungsten into the toe from a CG position, a playability point of view. So next step on would be ZX5.
Yep.
Again, I'll show this to camera. You'll see the same visuals in terms of where that sort of muscle bar visual is on the back of this head. Retains the same progression in tech and face marriaging as last year as well. So again, hand over to you for the update bit on this.
Yeah, again, we call this mainframe technology, where we use more milling going on in the back there to get the weight in the right place, and obviously try and keep it a similar look to ZX7, where customers can interchange their irons. So combo sets are really popular with us, particularly with the lower iron in this and then the higher irons in the ZX7.
And essentially with this head, it's by marrying the face in, it's a thinner, faster material.
Yeah.
Removes a bit of weight from the face, which allows you to put more weight into the sole, makes it a little bit more forgiving. Actually, this one, it looks, it may just be a trick of the finishing. It looks like there's a little bit more of a graduation on that back edge as well.
Absolutely, yeah. They've worked hard on finish to make it appealing on the shelf initially, and obviously there's performance elements there as well.
Yeah. So where that back edge is trail off, essentially that's to do with the club head exiting the turf and allowing it to slide through a little bit.
The V-sole technology is, as I said before, is very important to us as a company.
So these two are real kind of small tweaks. The top line's probably a little bit neater than last year, particularly on the ZX5. The head that's really changed is the ZX4. So, showing that to the back of camera. So this one in previous model was quite a big, chunky head.
It was.
You know, there was a lot of width to the sole, a lot of weight in the sole frame, but visually to look down on had, I'm going to say, a little more offset.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can clean up the line through the neck and into the leading edge, and actually looks less when actually it's the same amount. But certainly a noticeably wider sole and thicker top line, and this is a vastly neater head relative to last year's model.
Absolutely, and we've tried to make it look similar to the ZX5 model, but this one is obviously it's a hollow head as opposed to a cavity head.
Yeah.
So it's designed to be slightly faster and potentially easier to hit. It does have slightly stronger lofts, so it is aimed for the more game improvement guy.
I think one of the elements to it, I think the ZX4 last year really stood out as being a totally different head to the rest. That now sits, if I can get this visual the right way around, between to the camera there, between the 5 and the 4. I don't know whether that's clear enough. They're very, very similar shapes. So you've now got two heads where, again, if you were wanting to blend, if you wanted to gain a little bit more ball speed into the 4 versus the 5, the top end of the set, you now don't have to go to something totally different visually. So I think that's going to make that head a lot more appealing to a lot more players who still want to put something in the bag that looks like a golf club, but you know what I mean in terms of that. It's a more traditional looking head. It's got on the hosel here, it's forged face. So it's a slightly different material on the face to the ZX5, and all it's aimed at speed, I would imagine.
It's definitely aimed at speed. The challenge to the engineers was to make it, like you said, to make it look a little bit more traditional, but with the performance of definitely more performance, faster ball speeds. And as I say, it has been slightly stronger lofts in these models.
And actually, that one will lead into, to complete the kind of the iron end of the line, the ZXU, the driving iron, which, from our point of view, has been one of our best-selling clubs from Srixon in the last few years. Partly the ball speeds have been great, but it's not been quite as harsh a sound, harsh a feel as a lot of the other products that have been out there in this category. Which is why I play the ZU85, which is a couple of models old. Partly because it feels a bit more of a progression off my irons, being I play a blade through most of them, rather than that kind of harsh.
The forged face is important to our range of products here. We try and keep it consistent, and like you said, it doesn't want to be too harsh, too fast, but at the same time you need a nice feel.
And so the ZU85 that I've got, it's a little bit wider and the sole a little chunkier, which was a complaint of a lot of players. So then last year's model was a little bit neater shape, and this one, it's not that much bigger.
No, it's slightly wider on the sole, but the clever thing is we've got this mirror back to it, so difficult to explain unless you look down on it.
You see that section's a more of a mirrored finish versus a slightly more matte finish there and on the sole.
And the idea really behind that is it hides the flange. When you put it against the ground, all you can see is the reflection, either of the grass or a carpet in this case. So.
Yeah, it does, and I find that on the 85, but this, even more so. You're putting it down there, all you see is a very, very, very slight reflection there, but all you're seeing is that top line there. So, and again, head length is very, very comparable to the ZX5 and to all of them actually, and ZX5 and ZX4 in particular. So forms a very, very natural progression off of them.
Yeah.
And I guess there's very little places to go with the speeds that you get off some of these heads now. Has it been more about tuning the aesthetics, obviously fine-tuning weight positioning as well, but more getting it sitting in the right window visually?
I think it's the biggest thing with this product is to get more people to play our utility iron. On tour, they're very popular, and if we can take the tour to the marketplace by making them attractive, then hopefully we'll have more people playing them.
And these ones go from, there's a 3-iron and a 4-iron in the bag here. There'll be 2-iron at 18.
And there was a 2 as well, yeah.
Yeah. So the nice thing from our point of view is seeing that Srixon have done what we hoped they were going to do, which is not try and reinvent the wheel, actually take products that work for good reason and have worked really consistently, and just to say tweak them and fine tune them. Actually, one of the other bits that I was going to say on this one is there's a noticeable change in the sole shape. So we've got a couple of notches in the sides here. And actually may not be easy to see on the camera here. There's a little bit of relief on the back edge, which we were looking at earlier. It's almost like a sort of grind you might see on a wedge. Again, all to improve turf interaction.
Less turf interaction, more speed through the ball. That's key on this product because it's aimed at distance. Yeah.
So some nice little details on there as well to show that everything's being considered. Then down the bottom end, we've got the a carryover. That's a fresh one as well, isn't it?
That's new.
So 2 new wedge styles down there. We'll start with the more traditional shape on RTX-6. So this one's the black version of the head. We'll be coming in chrome
and raw.
So sole shape, very, very in line with what Cleveland had done before. Looks to me like the top edges, the top half's a bit thicker. Again, it may be the angling and the chamfering, the shaping around the
I think it's to do with the shaping more so than the actual thickness.
But main change here, I mean, it's a very slightly more rounded shape than some other brands have gone for.
It's very traditional. They like to keep the tradition from the first ever wedge.
Yeah, and they always had that slightly more rounded leading edge and a little more round around the toe. So it's quite a nice compact shape. We had a brief conversation about these before we got started filming, but there's, I believe, an extra groove, I think you said, on the face.
There's 2 extra grooves. They've put made the grooves closer together to enable 2 more extra grooves on the face, which is obviously aimed at more grip, more spin, and more sharper edges all over the face. And there's a new technology on there as well, which is a new form of grind called, excuse me a minute. That's called Hydra Zip.
So you can see actually between the kind of the fine milling and the fine etching between the grooves, there's a lot of different directions going on there.
Yeah.
You know, all the elements between the grooves are as important as the grooves themselves, in terms of getting that extra grip, particularly at low speed.
Yeah.
And in, out the rough and in damp conditions. So it's a noticeable change in the actual pattern and the formation of that milling.
They're very proud of the faces that they produce, and they have an awful lot of technology on the face that they have used over time, and they just keep finding new things to make it even rougher, to get more spin, and spin, as you know, is very important on a wedge.
So that's the thing with wedges, there's so few places to go. You know, you're limited on the depth of the groove, the width, the edge shape, the sharpness. So it's really the texture in between the grooves, which is the main area for development.
Yeah, you can't make them any deeper. We can't make them any sharper, and that's really where we can go, is face technology.
And then the other wedge in the bag here, sort of designed around a little bit more forgiveness, is the CBX Full-Face 2. Back of the wedge there, and then being the Full-Face, obviously Full-Face grooves all the way across and up to the top edge. So this is something with a little bit more of a cavity profile, a little more forgiveness.
Yeah.
Similar, I'm assuming the same kind of milling technologies on the RTX.
Yeah, brand new Hydra Zip.
In terms of the head material change between the two, is there a particular, I guess, needs to be a slightly different material to allow for the cavities and that kind of rather than slightly softer material for the main wedges for the shaping to be pressed in? This is a more complicated build structure, really.
Yeah, I'll be brutally honest, I'm not sure on that one. But I believe that we as a company feel that the cavity wedge is an important product due to the fact that a lot of people use cavity irons, and they tend to gravitate to a bladed wedge. So this is the reason why we make the product, to keep the
There've
trends.
been so few over the years, haven't they?
Yeah.
You know, as you say, so many people play a forgiving iron, a forgiving wood, forgiving hybrid, and then go to a wedge and broaden blades, and so you know, getting that perimeter weighting, getting actually a little bit more. And what's just quite nice with this, looking at the sole shape, is that you've got call it that way, sort of narrower on the heel, which is an area having a decent bit of relief on the heel. You don't want too much there because it just gets in the way of getting the club through different turf types and sand. Progressed out a little bit more to the toe, and so you've got plenty of width to play with. But the other element, you know, if I'm getting the right angle there, is the general shaping across the sole. So you've got a bit of protection on the leading edge. If you get a little bit steep or the turf softer, then that's going to stop it digging. But then a really nice graduation, really nice graduation of how that back edge shapes to allow the club to exit the turf or the sand. So for a what might call a game improvement wedge, for want of a better phrase, it allows you to play an awful lot of shots.
Yeah. They make it from a 52 degree right the way to 60. So there's for people that like playing across the face or like to open the blade, it's a nice product that goes with the standard CBX zip core that we launched last year.
And so noticeably, I think the bit that really stands out for me is noticeably neater in the heel side. You know, it's the toe that takes most of the interaction through, hopefully through sand and through turf on the shorter swings, the delicate shots. So then you've got loads of sole to use on there. But then the bit that we all get in trouble with is when the heel catches. So really nicely designed.
Yeah,
head.
it's cleverly done.
Yeah. So that covers irons and wedges.
Yep.
Top end. So let's see if we can work out which. I'll take a couple to see which ones are which. Pop that on the side there. So two, as with previous years, two main models, 5 and 7.
Yep.
Now there are going to be, I think there are, if I'm correct, there are some models that aren't yet or are going to be very limited availability.
Yeah, the Tour have used, or the Tourer have access to some low spinning options. The popular one is LS ZX5 at the moment, Mark II.
Yeah.
They're in prototype stage, they've been tested, and we understand that they're actually using them on tour.
Yeah.
So, which is really good to keep the players happy.
Yeah.
Because they are obviously quite demanding, so these products have to perform.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah, because I think as some of our clients would have seen the two models in each of the heads on some of the USGA sites where all the photos go up. And, so has there been, you're talking about the torso thing, has there been much of has there been a very obvious split between the head models
there
that they're
has,
using?
yeah, ZX5 seems to be the product that they're gravitating to. This is a higher launching product, weight being further back as opposed to the ZX7, where the weight's split. This is a lower launching product.
So the ZX5 is on the top, ZX7 on the bottom. So you can see with the 5 there's a single weight at the back, ZX7 split weight. Just a little bit less to the back of the head, but then for slightly different launch spin profiles. So again, kind of progression from previous models. Again, both models. I think did both have 2 weights last time round. You always doubt yourself when you think.
No, only ZX7 had 2 and ZX5 have 1. The main difference between these two heads is we've come away from carbon, and they're completely titanium. So the sound is slightly different from the previous models.
Yeah.
And they've been proven on tour to be a couple of miles an hour faster.
And from obviously the acoustic elements, but I'm assuming from a design structure point of view, was that something that's been looking like it's been going that way for a while, moving away from the composite, or is it now just the ability to get the other materials as thin and as strong as they'd like them to be?
I think the development of titanium and the way they cast the titanium has improved, and there is some new technology there that has enabled us to use the complete frame of titanium as opposed to carbon fusion that goes on. The gluing side of there's expense to that, so I believe they've designed and developed it, and the sound is excellent and the performance is very good.
And I guess obviously there's the structural change moving away from the carbon side of things. Really, is it a case of, like with the irons, taking what worked from the previous models and just developing those points within the new materials, rather than saying, right, we need to make a massive change in X performance characteristic?
Yeah, I think the idea with these products is to hit the ball further. We know as a brand that distance is very important to a driver, and that's what they've decided to do, is go for that, go in that direction.
Great stuff. So, and in terms of loft options available between...
Yeah, 9.5 and 10.5 in both models.
Yeah, great. And the same sleeve as previous models?
Yeah.
Yeah, great. Right. Let's look to the Fairway woods now as well. So actually the previous model, previous ZX5, was actually quite a strong flighting head.
Yeah.
It's actually one of the lower spinning heads that we saw through the year. It was almost a little bit, you could argue it was almost a little too low for some players. And what's noticeable this was a little bit more of a rounding to the sole. Very, very clean. I'll show the round to the sole of the camera. So there's a little bit more of a U shape to the sole there. Very, very clean, simple visual on the crown. Now, it would look from the pattern that there's still some composite in this.
There is carbon there. The main reason for that is we need to lower the CG to help people get the ball in the air to get some spin. That happens with the +3, the stronger 3-wood and the 3-wood. The 5-wood and 7-wood are pure titanium.
Great. And again, to general updates, are there any particular changes that the company's gone for with this product from a launch, spin, flight side of things versus last series?
Not really. I think they have tried to gain a little bit more spin with the Fairway woods, hence lowering the CG as much as they can. But they have tried to make the product go as far as it possibly can, being a 3-wood, which is an alternative for a driver for some people off the tee.
So again, sort of fine tuning, probably more, well, certainly more so than the driver, because there's less of a structural change to it. And so I think the visuals are appealing. There's a nice, both on the driver and the Fairway wood, which we'll come on to the hybrid in a moment. There's some little flashes on the back side of the sole here that actually sort of frame the back of the head. And you see that on the driver. I'll show the driver as well. We see that on the driver too, where there's sort of quite a nice sort of framing to that back head. Fairly clear as to where the face is. That change in the paint there, from an alignment point of view, helps there.
Yeah.
It's a nice, simple, clean look. I think it feels like most brands are going away from being too loud and different visually, and almost sort of calming things down and quietening things down a little bit, just across the board, not just for the Srixon products here.
I tend to agree with you. That seems to be a trend.
The days of
bright and cheerful.
When you do white, people don't want white. When you don't do white, people want white. But yeah, definitely, most brands are going for something that's a little bit, I guess, is going to be likely to be popular across the board rather than being too statement piece now.
Yeah.
And then finally to the hybrid. So similar size of head to last year. It was one of the slightly more compact heads. So you show the visual there. It's still a fairly neat shape, relatively slightly shorter top to heel to toe than some. So a little bit more of a compact look at a dress. And again, any particular angle that's been changed, or the same kind of general updates and progressions in weight position?
There isn't much that they've changed with this product. Obviously, the finish is different from the previous model. If anything, from what I understand, it's not quite so draw biased as the previous model, as hybrids tend to be very draw biased. And when you lay it down, it tends to lay open, slightly a little bit open, as opposed to pointing left of target.
Yeah, because if anything, there's a slight backward if anything, slight backward slant, which then means the, as you say, the club sits on that backside and doesn't shut down. But a nice sort of flat sole, actually. You can see where it finds its position nicely.
Yeah.
So you can say the same with the Fairway wood as well. And I think one of the things that's always popular is when you put a club down and it naturally seats, rather
well.
than feeling like you've got to find that setup position.
Yeah.
Actually going back to the driver, same kind of thing. When you kind of, pick the club up, pop it down, it settles very quickly into position, which is nice. So I guess in terms of loft-wise, thinking through the Fairway woods 3, 5.
There's a strong 3, a 3, a 5, a 7.
Yeah.
When it comes to the hybrids, we start at a 2, and we go right the way through to a 6.
Got it.
So there's quite
so
some.
the 2 will be 17 as per last time. I would imagine it was of 17,
Yeah.
19, 20.
Yeah, 2 degree increments.
Yeah, got it. And any from a significant sort of shaft changes, they're going to be inevitable updates to the more recent models. We've got the hazardous.
Yeah, this
hazardous
is
there.
this is the almost stock shaft, but there will be options if customers require different, different directions if they want it, different ball flights, or then I'm sure come to you and you can sort them out with different shafts. But these are generally a stock shaft.
Yeah, and certainly the RTX smoke, excuse me, is in. That's a shaft we're seeing quite a lot of, and then the hazardous black. They've literally just in the process of launching, or just launched back in last year, launched an updated version of this, so that'll be out there in the market pretty comfortably by now. So going for actually a fairly stout shaft with that.
Yeah, I think it's important to put a quality shaft and a quality head.
And it's official kind of launch dates are going to be, obviously we'll have all the demo product by the second half of the month. But
fitting starts probably mid-Feb, and launch dates around about March, middle of March time.
So a little later than some, but I think with the products that we've got, I think there's going to be certainly worth waiting coming into. Depending on how we're doing on time, or good for time, then So I think what'd be good to do in particular is between things like the ZX4, ZX5, looking at those and where the flight differences are.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's definitely start with an iron versus going to any kind of woods. But I think those two in particular, seeing where they. Obviously the 7 as well, where they sit relative to one another, but also the lofts change a little bit as well. So,
they do.
The proportions of spin are going to change a little bit, but ZX7 fairly traditional. If you take the 7 irons we've got here, 7 iron loft 32.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see if. Good out the bottom groove.
First swing of the day.
Yeah. Bottom groove always goes straight. So let's see if I can actually find some of the face. Pretty neutral hit. So yeah, pretty neutral hit there. So the Srixon irons we found, particularly the ZX7's always been that little bit lower spin than some. So that spin at 5.5 is lower half, but still absolutely fine. Launch angle's nice and neutral. Not that you're going to get anything different from a single piece forged club.
Does it feel any different having the weight in slightly different spot?
I'm going to hit one more just to because the first one really wasn't really going to tell me anything based on how bad it was. Definitely different sound.
A bit quieter.
Yeah, it's there's a bit less of a click. I think it's a slightly different, little bit of a different tone to it. I would say, I'll compare to the 5. I would say I think it is a little bit more a solid feel, but then sound and feel are pretty much one and the same. So by toning the sound down a little, it's going to. So normally an irons feel a bit more solid. The higher pitch note always feels a little bit fast, and this will certainly have a little bit more of a pop off of it, I'm sure. And so this one more like a
31.
31. Yeah. Okay, so
No.
not overly strong. Again, even that's tuned down a little bit from a sound point of view. Yeah, definitely a little bit less of that clickiness.
Yeah.
That was a little bit spooned, so. Okay, so when you hit it properly, you get a bit of that pop, but yeah,
Very
so
nice.
half a club or so more than the ZX7 for me there, but no, it's nice. That is nice. It's not so it's just that little bit tuned down in the previous model, but very, very balanced to impact that.
It's got some nice shelf appeal, that one.
And you know, it means nothing, but it means so much. You
Of
know,
course.
it's it's so important to have a set of clubs that you like the look of, that you like, that you feel good when you see them in the bag there. And I think the not having loads of flashes of colour and very obviously not having something just stuck in the back of it, I think that just makes it look quality, even though we know Srixon don't do anything else. But I think that's where the 4 in particular is looking a bit neater, a bit cleaner.
Yeah, they've gone to work with this one.
It'll be interesting to see kind of launch profile relative to the 5. Again, not a harsh note on it at all. And I didn't hit that well, and that's gone another yard further.
Well, this one, the loft on this one is 28.5.
So actually, again, considering that flight-wise, if I can square that up, where the trajectory isn't bad at all. Again, it's a nice note. It's a nice sound text. So again, that element of if you were to mix and match and combo them, it's not right. I'm picking up a ZX4 versus ZX5.
Yeah.
It's in particular those two. There's very nice, really nice continuity of feel and sound.
I think the combination of the forged face on a hollow works well.
Let's give that a one more. Because I think so many of this style of head are hard, harsh sounds that, okay, they sound fast off the face, but actually in reality people kind of go, "Ooh, Christ, that really gets the ears pinging." But actually that feels like, it doesn't feel a million miles off where the ZX7 is. I mean, it's not much of an exaggeration to say you could quite happily hit them side by side. And yes, one's more forgiving and clearly the weight sits a bit deeper, clearly a hollowed out head, but it's not, the experience of hitting it isn't wildly different.
It's not so harsh.
Which is really nice. Yeah, really nice.
That was the brief, I understand.
So, look at the driving iron.
What one have you gone for there, Simon?
Picked up the 3.
3.
Is it the same length, heel to toe, as the last model?
I believe it's very similar, yeah. It's
Yeah,
just that mirrored back.
A little bit shorter than my one, the U85. But, and so you really can't, you've got to be looking to see that. And probably a little neater. Yeah, so slightly, may or may not be a different width but from the angle, but looks just a little bit cleaner than the 4 top line, but definitely blend well off the ZX5. Healy, but considering that was nearly missed.
You could say that's straight.
But in Ballsby, considering that was not my finest contact, not too bad. Okay, let's see if I can find. That was hit better. Yeah, and then 148 efficiency. So for the 20-degree head, whereas I'd be, for the 18, I'd be looking to see the spin a little bit lower, but actually, again, very well balanced feel, really nice sound and feel. So that side, I think, that's a really nice progression on last year's product, where everything's just a little. There's so much continuity and feedback through the stuff.
That's great smash factor.
Yeah. It's something that we're always seeing with the driving irons. But actually, the last couple of models I've seen with the ZX5, even ZX7 to a point, is how efficient they are for ball speed. But yeah, no, it's a nice balance for the loft, a nice balance of spin and launch. So, say for my 2-iron equivalent, be looking to see that another 10% lower on spin, and then be pitching 220, 225, and then chasing out another 10 yards. But yeah, it's a nice. With how the product performed, it's not really an awful lot to change, because you don't really want to take too much spin off or change the ball fight for this particular product. But again, a really nice feeling head. So it'll be interesting to see the comparable on the hybrid, especially relative to that. There's only 1 degree difference, so it'll be interesting to see where we get the flight was out of. So it's interesting, that matte finish is quite a. There's a very clear top edge to it. Mm-hmm. Very kind of incognito back half of it. It's very, very, very understated.
Yeah.
Little necky. So again, go and get one out of the middle of the face. The heel strike the order of the day today. As anything but, so went a bit too far, the other thing a bit toe, but so launch angle up that little bit more. Yeah, it's not too. It's got that little bit of pop to it. It's a very inoffensive without having to sound kind of nothingy. It's a very there's nothing that someone's going to dislike about it.
Yeah.
Really, with this head, it's more about, does the flight actually give you what you're looking for out of it? I've never been a particular hybrid player. It's a better hit. Yeah, so you can see ball speed there is up now. I've actually found the face.
And there's a slight fade. So not quite so draw biased as other brands.
Yeah, it's and that's been something that hybrids have missed for a while. There haven't been many heads that haven't had that right to left bias on them. So for something to sit very neutrally, look very neutral, play very neutral, it's nice to have another option doing that.
Yeah.
A little bit on the kind of mid to stronger mid side spin wise, but it's enough like for that for me in terms of for this bit of the bag. Sits in a nice window on flight. It's not a spinny high soft flight, but it's got a nice bit of pitch to it.
And again, good smash factor there.
So it helps when you get it somewhere near the middle of the face, unlike the first couple. So this will be an interesting one to see based on where the flight was in the previous model. So it's surprisingly strong off of the previous head. So. Okay, yeah. So, yeah, actually good ball speed off of that.
Yes,
that really came off the face well. But that's again very neutral spin. It's a slight fade there, sort of more of a bit of an inside of the face. Okay, all my contacts are going slightly towards the heel side, but the previous one was right down almost of 2.6 on spin for me. So fat. Quality today. I'll do one more. A little bit lighter balance-wise than I'm used to, yeah. So a little bit turned, like I say, fairly drawn over. But so to have to work that much shape to get the spin there shows you actually pretty picked it up. It's got to be about another 10% of spin versus last year's model, which is nice. Okay. Really good ball speed off of that as well, though. None of those are really. They're not right out the middle, so yeah, it's nice. It picks up kind of neutral launch as well.
That one's 15 degrees, but we do make a 13.5 degree fairway.
Which would be a good option for somebody who's not that comfortable with a driver, slightly shorter shaft.
Yeah.
Dare I, with the way I'm swinging today. I can both while I go the ZX5 first. So, how much would you expect to see from these two differences? Or are they both?
The main difference should. This is a 6.0. It's a 9.5. If it's.
Okay, yeah, no, it's probably the better lot for me.
Hopefully, we should see a difference in flight.
Again, they sit very, very square. There's no. In the standard position, there's no turn into it.
Like you say, you put it down, it's in position.
Okay. And a very balanced feel through impact. You can really feel the head stays with you. And it is quite a different sound.
Yeah.
Really
Higher
noticeably
pitched,
kind of energy off of it.
crisper. It's not
A
so
little lower
crunch.
on the face.
It's not such a crunch, is it?
No, a little bit lower on the face, but actually spin stayed pretty neutral there as well, considering that's going to gear up from the bottom part of the face. And very, very stable. Okay.
And the height, launch.
Well, that one a little bit lower on the face. The previous one's probably more natural. That was a more centered contact, more sort of 14 launch and 2.5 on spin. So, okay. It's interesting to compare. It's not a massive differential in size of the head as well. It's not blindingly obvious which one's which.
Okay.
It's a little bit of a difference. It's slightly.
One should be further.
The 5's got a little bit more.
Yeah, and maybe a little bit deeper in the
but
back
to
end.
look down on, there's a lot of continuity between the two. So you wouldn't know 100% which one. I say slightly tighter line around the toe, but not an obvious difference. This has got a little bit more loft on it, but it'd be interesting to see spin difference. Again, bottom of the face. Not doing well today. Solid hit. Yeah, so considering this is the 10.5 versus the 9.5 in the ZX5, we've then got comparable launch to the one slightly lower on the face. So I think you're likely to see it's a good degree and a half difference in launch angle, I think.
Yeah.
But for me, with those couple of strikes, again, it's on a couple of shots where I'll do a bit more data with my own shaft and things, but spin relative to launch, the 5 looks a little bit hotter for me on those couple of shots. But again, a little less high pitch note on the 7. So the more sort of traditional, slightly smaller head, a little more kind of solid sound. But in some respects, not crazy low spin, which is no bad thing. But ball speed comparison, I have to see, because a couple of shots more got about 10 yards more actually out of the ZX5 because the spin was that little bit lower.
Yeah.
A little more optimal in terms of flight for me on those shots. So, yeah, I think
it's nice to have two to try, isn't it?
It is.
Interchangeable
I think there's
shaft.
enough of a difference between the heads where I think with some of the brands, the last couple of models, one in particular, we've lost a little bit of that definition between the models. They're good, and the ball speed, the performance is good, particularly with the woods, but it's been hard to say, right, that head does that and that head does that. It's almost a feel and a sound difference, but the flights don't differentiate that much. Whereas on these heads, you've got a very noticeable change in the launch and spin profile, which makes, from a fitting point of view, is great because you can dial that in a little bit more. That's again good ball speed. It's both heads feel very stable.
Good.
So, nice, really nice updated product, and look forward to getting fitting with them. So,
Should be nice.
thank you very much for your time.
Pleasure.
Really appreciate you coming in and
you.
going through these with us.
Thank you for
And,
being honest.
Oh, as always, the data doesn't lie. Sadly, my swing can lie sometimes. But no, look forward to getting those products in, and yeah, look forward to seeing people in testing the new Srixon gear out.